Hi, my name's Steve Simpson. Thanks for finding the channel, and I've got another Aesop story for you today. And just like most of the others, I don't really understand it, but it is interesting to think what possible meaning we can take from it. There must be a reason why Aesop's stories have become so loved over many centuries now and are still repeated, not just to children, but to everybody. Anyway, I've got a little story of my own, and but I'll start with the Aesop story, and it's the story of the vicious dog. Because there was a house owned by a man who kept a dog. And the problem with the dog was that when anybody came to the house, the dog would bark. I guess that's pretty normal for a dog. But when the person came into the house, the dog would do his best to bite that person, and quite often did. And the man, I guess he was upset for a couple of reasons, but one of the reasons was that people stopped visiting him. And he knew that he either had to get rid of this dog or change its behavior. And the best idea that he could come up with at the time was that he put a bell around the dog's neck, so that whenever the dog was around, people would hear the bell and they would keep their distance. And the dog actually liked having this bell. He thought that he had been given some special kind of reward and would be proudly strutting around the house and the garden with his bell ringing. And one day there was an old wise dog who took this dog to one side and said, "We've been watching you and we don't like your behavior. You're very arrogant, and you think that you're a special kind of dog, and because of that you've been given a special bell. Well, the truth is that nothing could be farther from the truth. You are a disgrace to a dog, because over the centuries and over the thousands of years we have lived closely with man, and our job is not to bite man. They're not in our food chain, and your behavior sticks out like a sore thumb, and I know I'm mixing the metaphors here." So the point of the story is that I suppose we all think we're special, and I suppose that many people would like to think that they're famous as well. And indeed, many people are famous, but sometimes people are famous for the wrong reason. And whilst people in the media, they say things like, well, there's only one thing worse than bad publicity, and that's no publicity. But I'm not sure that many people really agree with that. So I'd be interested to know what you think about this story. And as I said, I've got my own story, and I'd be very interested to know what you think about this one, because it happened about 20 years ago, and I'm as puzzled today as I was then. At that time, I was working in a very desolate part of the world. It was Western Kazakhstan, very close to the Caspian Sea. And we lived and worked on a camp, and we worked 6.5 days a week. And on the Sunday, we had an afternoon off when we could do our bits of shopping, not that there were any shops really to go to, and our laundry, and get out and get some exercise. And I definitely suffered from cabin fever, and every Sunday afternoon I went out and I did my gentle jog to the edge of the Caspian, which is about 2 miles away, and I'd just stand there and gaze at the Caspian Sea. There wasn't a great deal to see most times either, and then I would jog back. And there was one particular time that I did this. It was in the middle of winter. It was extremely cold. Kazakhstan has got about one of the worst climates in the world, plus 50 in the summer, centigrade, and minus 50 in the winter. Well, it wasn't quite minus 50 that day, but I bet it was minus 10. So I went off for my run, enjoying at least the fresh air, even if it was cold. And after about a half mile away from the camp, I realized I was surrounded by what I thought were dogs, 5 or 6 of them. And when I looked closer, I realized they were no dogs that I'd seen before, that these were wolves. And just like anybody, I was a bit scared, and I didn't really know what to do. So I thought, well, I'm just going to carry on running, but I'm going to have my eyes everywhere, and I'll deal with whatever happens the best way I can. I don't frankly know what I'm going to do, but anyway. So I carried on for a little while, and after a couple of minutes I realized a couple of very strange things. First of all, these wolves didn't directly look at me, or didn't appear to be. Another thing was that they never got closer to me than about 5 meters, and they carried on running with me. And another thing that I was really pleased about was that none of them were actually running behind me. So I could see to the left and to the right and to the front all of these 5 dogs, and I could keep my eye on them. So I thought, well, I'll just carry on running and see what happens, and that's what I did. And I got to the edge of the Caspian. I gazed out across the sea. There wasn't much to see, a couple of fishing boats, and then I turned round and I ran back to the camp. And the wolves kept their close order, and I got to about half a mile or so from the camp, and the wolves just disappeared. They slunk away. And now, what did that mean? Well, the first thing was it was a strange experience, obviously, but after the initial fear, I actually have to say that I really enjoyed it, and it was almost like it had a spiritual quality. And I know I'm not the only person that's ever reported an incident like this. I know there's a famous Hollywood movie called Running with Wolves, and so this is some kind of behaviour that wolves do, and who knows for what reason. Who knows what would have happened if I'd stumbled and fallen over, or if I got tired and had to sit down and rest. I haven't got a clue, prefer not to think about it. But there you are. Dogs behave in certain strange ways. Wolves are dogs, and we are humans, and we all live on this planet, and there's probably more that binds all of us together than separates us. So there's food for thought for you. Your questions and comments welcome, and another video will be coming soon, I hope. So for the moment, goodbye, and may the rest of your day be truly wonderful.